Interview for Open House, and as you can see we're joined by the all-time great Simon Goodwin. How are you, Goody?
Good, Mulch. Yourself?
Thank you very much for coming in.
No worries at all.
Mate, let's just hit it off. An extraordinary career, okay? Fair while now in playing the old footy, starting off in South Adelaide, following your old man, Terry, down there.
Played a great 75 games.
75 games for the mighty South Adelaide Footy Club.
Yeah.
Highlights of your career. What's standouts?
Without question, the two premierships early on, you know, looking back, there were certainly some great days back then, something that you always aspire to play for, but you don't think you're going to get it in such a quick fashion, which I did when I came in to play my career. So
how old were you, Simon?
I was 20.
20 when you played your first flag.
So 10 games, so that was definitely a highlight, you know. But you know, as time goes on and you have a fair few missed opportunities, you know, that's always the disappointing side of footy as well. I think I've had 3 prelim finals since then, and you know, probably 6 final series where I haven't been able to do it again, and that's been quite frustrating.
Sure.
So there's been some definite lows throughout that period. But in saying that, probably getting the opportunity to lead the footy club for the last 3 years has been something that, you know, I'll really cherish. I probably didn't think I'd get that opportunity with Roo being at the club and being such a strong leader for such a long period of time. And, you know, coming in and being able to have an impact on the culture of the footy club for the last 3 years has been something I'm really proud of.
I want to talk about the leadership model in a minute, but Craigie coming out and saying you were the very best leader of the football club, huge accolade.
Yeah.
What do you think he saw in you that was different to, say, Bix or Roo? Tough question.
It is a tough question. You know, I think I've been blessed to have had so many great leaders come before me, and you know, I was there when McDermott was at the club and McGuinness, and then Bickley and Rashido. So to see a bit of everything, I think was really good. But I think the leadership model was something that probably shaped me. I had a real passion for the leading teams model and the player empowerment side of it. And I think something that I've really honed in on is not only maximising my own abilities and getting the maximum out of myself, but really harnessing that into getting the best out of a lot of younger players at the club. And you know, with that you set pretty high standards, and that's probably the style of leadership that I've sort of formed. Yeah,
it just seems a little bit quieter leadership to say maybe McDermott and Roo, and the respect you've got from those young guys for the time you've put into them has been immense.
Yeah, like Roo, you know, he could win a game off his own boot, very demanded respect from within the game, and you know, the way I play my game probably isn't as a high level as what he had, so I maybe go about it a different way. But ultimately, leadership's about influencing people, and you can go about that a whole different range of ways. I went about it slightly different to a few others, but you know, learned some things along the way from those guys, which I found very valuable.
Since we're talking about Craigie, what's he like?
He's fantastic. Yeah. You know, he's completely different to what people see sometimes from the outside looking in. He's very humorous. He's got enormous respect from within the playing group, and he's a real mentor and teacher of the game. And I think the great thing about Craigie, it's not all about football. He's also a mentor in life, and really works with guys and digging into their personal lives and finding out what's going on, and I think that's what really makes him such a great coach.
Fantastic. Goody, back to you, mate, and how quickly you deviate from yourself, which I think's made you a good leader. But All-Australian player, how many times?
5.
And you enjoyed going over to Ireland, I believe?
Yeah, really enjoyed that. Went over there with Roo and Andy McLeod in 2000 and loved that series. Wasn't very good at it.
Goalkeeper or something, weren't you?
Initially, I was just, I didn't get picked for the first team. I was pretty average at kicking that round ball. Found that quite difficult, but it was more about being over there with the players, and you know, I learned a lot from that trip, hanging around with, you know, guys like Hurd and Brad Johnson and Rowan Smith and these sort of guys, Nathan Brown. So it was a great learning curve for me going away that. In 2001, I did it again in Australia, and took up goalkeeping and went down in history as the worst goalkeeper ever. So international rules probably wasn't the highlight of my career.
Fantastic to be involved. We spoke very briefly about the leadership model. What's the name of the guy that you're using?
Ray McLean.
Ray McLean. Can you just tell us a little bit about it? You've been at the club a long time. What sort of impact has the leadership model had on the way the club's run? It's
had a huge impact on the culture of the footy club, and give us some real direction and some empowerment within the playing group. And it really is just about a trademark and a set of behaviours that you really want to aspire and live by. And as a playing group, we set those, which means you got buy buy-in from the whole playing group, and from that moment on it gives you a great management tool to use and lead if players aren't doing the right thing, or reward them if they are living to the behaviours and standards that you need. And I found it really enjoyable. It certainly shaped our culture to become a club that really revolved around working hard and getting the maximising the most out of each other. And I think if you looked at our list over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been able to do that. This year, probably not for the first time, and had some challenges around that with injuries and players performing at not to the level that were required. And so for the first time, the program is going to be really challenged.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it moves forward from here.
Is it important, with you stepping aside from a great game, is it important that the next leader absolutely embellishes it like you have?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's important that not only the leader does, but the leaders under him and the whole playing group under them that really embrace the culture of the footy club. And I'm very confident that the playing group there will, and they'll get back to, I think we've even started this year in the last 10 rounds to get it back to being really competitive against some of the top teams. So I've got no doubt with the departures that we're having at the footy club that club's going to be very strong next year.
Just with the leadership program, there's been a couple of instances this year where people haven't done the right thing while you've been away, been a bit late home, things like that. Is that where the actual model is challenged? I mean, the easy thing to do is just not to report it, not to do anything about it, and away we go, but to take such a strong stance.
Yeah, look, it is. That's when you get challenged the most, because at the end of the day, the public and the supporters of the footy club and the sponsors want to see the best players playing every week. Now, to maximise your playing group, you set up this thing where you live by your standards and your behaviours. Now, going out late or too late of what you're meant to be isn't necessarily the wrong thing to do, but the right thing to do is to prepare yourself in the best way possible to perform. That's what your trademark and behaviours are all about. So if you can't live up to those, then you're letting your teammates down, and hence that you need to certainly get some trust back. And that's really what it was. It was a lack of trust from those guys once they did that, and then they've had to work pretty hard to build it up, which they have.
Yeah, really gutsy move. I mean, we know football clubs, and we know the mentality of the footy club is, hey, what happens on tour stays on tour type thing, some of those things. So really gutsy move. For the first time that I can remember in the footy club, so McDermott, stand out, McGuinness probably at the time, Bickley, then Rue, then yourself, all pretty much chose themselves as the captain. First time there's been a little bit of chat as to who's going to be the next captain. What's your tip?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's you're right. I think for the first time we're going to have a young captain, which is, I think it's exciting for the footy club and exciting for the supporter base, because once you get that guy established as a leader, you could probably have a leader there for 8, 9, 10 years. And I really think it's going to be a Nathan Van Berlo or a Ben Rutten. Those two to me really stand out in their leadership qualities. They're very demanding and